Now, welcome back to Mi Riqueza Podcast. I'm your host, Leah Landavete, and it has really been a minute since I have released an episode. Honestly, life has been crazy since last year, since 2022. I'm recording this in my new space in Dallas, Texas, here that I just recently moved to like a month ago. I'm in April, March. Um, but that being said, I wanted to enter this new year with Nuevas Vibras, this new podcast with Nuevas Vibras, because at the end of the day, we're so ever evolving and our ideas change, our lives change. And Mi Riqueza Podcast has always been a podcast to reflect my journey, but also the journey of others who are trying to attain wealth, of others who are trying to create their story. And so this season and going forward, we're going to be really switching it up here. So every other episode is going to be about me and my journey and where I'm at. And the other episodes are going to be interviews of people that inspire me, interviews of people who are driving change, interviews of people who I have questions about and want to learn from. Because at the end of the day, this podcast is all about redefining what wealth really is and the journey that I'm embarking to get there and to discover what that looks like for me and for others. So that's how we're restructuring Mi Riqueza Podcast this new season. And honestly, I'm super excited that I'm going to be able to show my face to y'all and, also talk about more things of my life that have impacted my journey today. A lot of you know where I come from, St. George, Utah. A lot of you know my money story of how I got here, from the '08 crisis to going to college to working for, a huge, large investment bank and then starting my own business, starting my own coaching practice. And I've been doing this now for over 2 years. And in that journey, there's so many stories to tell. And I want to be able to do that and show you what finding my riqueza really looks like and being able to be vulnerable, because this day and age, I have no reason to hide what's going on in my life. I have no reason to, be ashamed, because I'm also on this journey with y'all. Like, I'm also trying to discover who is Leah in 2023? Who does she want to become? Who does she want to evolve into? And so that being said, we're entering this new season with Nuevas Vibras, Nueva Energía. And so to start this first episode, I want to talk about 2022. I want to talk about what happened. I want to talk about what shifted in my life and what brought me here. So 2022 was a year of identifying and figuring out who is Leah outside of the image of her parents. So in my story, y'all know that I used to work for Goldman Sachs, a large investment bank. And after creating my business, I had to resign and move in with my parents. And so I lived with my parents for over 10 months in Utah. And these 10 months were a time period for me to feel some emotions that I've been hiding for a very, very long time. During the pandemic, I had a fallout with my parents because of my queer identity. And, back then I used to believe that my queer identity was very separate from my business identity or from how I would show up to people. I used to say, you meet me the way that I show up. You can meet me at a gay club, or you can meet me at a financial workshop, or you can meet me, at a Latin club. You're going to find me at one of these. But essentially, I was dividing myself, but the queer part of me was hurt, like I had to hide a lot of my personality, hide a lot of who I was, because not only did I live in Utah, but I also, have a very Christian household, very religiosos, that my parents, when they figured out who I was, or more like I told them who I was when I was young, and they just really didn't accept it. And then I reminded them, hey, I'm gay, during the pandemic. It just kind of caused issues, and I didn't talk to them for a while. So when I moved back in, I was like, Leah, this is your time to figure out your relationship with your parents and how this dynamic is going to be going forward. Is it going to be healthy? I don't know. Is it going to be a lot of pain and tears? Probably. And at this point in time, I was also on antidepressants because I've been dealing with depression and anxiety my whole life. And obviously, being queer is a part of the reason why. But when I moved back in with them, I I guess I had this image that everything was going to be okay again, and that, I was still going to be able to be independent while living under their roof. But it kind of almost brought me back 6 years in the past, moving with my parents. And I love them. We're on good terms now, but essentially then I felt like I was 19 again. I felt like I was living in that environment of, my dad's rules, my mom's rules, and then I'm there just, stuck in my room. And at this point in time, I was not only dealing with that, but I was trying to run this business that I do now, right? I'm trying to discover, that it gets a collective, the services, the clients that I'm trying to build. I'm trying to make some money. I'm trying to really showcase who I am and what I want to do and shift in our community. And so I'm navigating, who is Leah with her parents being queer? Are they going to accept her? How do I run a business effectively and transparently and change the way and decolonize the systems and structures that are in place? And so, you know, it was a lot. It was a lot. And so last year I had said, Leah, you're going to move out. I said, this is it. You're about to hit month 10. And starting of January of last year, started looking for apartment complexes in Dallas, Texas. Now, a lot of people ask me why Dallas. Not only did I see opportunity in Texas because there's a huge Latino population here that I feel like a lot of people ignore, just because obviously we're right next to the border, but also, I had my lovely goddaughter be born, and my best friend, who I used to work with at Goldman, it was like, Leah, I would love for you to come. We need you. That's your god baby. It would be a pleasure for us to be closer. And for me, blood family doesn't mean everything. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to start something new. I've always wanted to leave Utah. I can't with this culture because I was always the only Latina in the space. I was always the one trying to, you know, fit in on their terms in order to be, in order to navigate the waters there. And I was like, no, I need to grow. I need to take up more space, and Utah is not allowing that. I also felt like, my relationship with my parents only got worse, but while moving in, I felt very distant from them. And so I was like, you know what, this is your time to become independent and again, try again, because I had used to have a house, and that's a whole conversation episode for another day. But I was I wanted to start over, and I wanted to take up space, and I wanted to find myself in new opportunities. And so I started looking for the apartment complex. I found one. I had my parents help me with some income verification, and bada boom, I have an apartment to move into in March. Now, moving was a real test to my relationship with my parents. Like I said, I still love them. I understand that I am the only daughter. I am the eldest daughter. So there's some standards that they want me to follow that I have always decided that I wasn't, but they still dream. And so right before I left, my parents didn't help me. They didn't offer to move me. They didn't offer to let me borrow their truck. They didn't offer to pay for anything. I did it all by myself. I packed a U-Haul, attached it to my Jeep. I figured it all by myself. I packed all my boxes. And my brothers, helped me carry some big ones, but my dad and my mom really had no comment until the very last day. And this is where that guilt comes out, of course, because your parents are trying to guilt trip you into saying, hey, we love you, stay here, you'll be safe here. My dad was trying to tell me like, I'm abandoning them, and the world is scary, and I just want to go do my locuras. Y pues I don't pay rent there. So it was a whole thing. But I was like, Dad, I've lived on my own for a very long time already, 6 years. I had my own house. I had my own bills. I was fine. And I just needed this time to start up again. I've been very successful in the first year of business. I've coached so many individuals. I've had exposure with, you know, big companies, and I'm getting somewhere. And the next step is to take up more space somewhere else. And so I made this move, and in this move, obviously I was so scared because this is March of 2022 and I'm like, I don't know where I'm going. I am entering a new city, different culture. But starting, fresh was liberating. A lot of people talk about financial independence as like a number of something that you use to retire. But for me, financial independence is being able to stand on my own and get back up on my own feet. And there's going to be moments in our lives, and I say this with my clients, I say this even in my videos, that there's going to be highs and lows in life. And especially on your wealth journey, there's going to be highs and lows. And as much knowledge that you may have, you can still struggle to make money moves, because life is hard sometimes. Life just likes to throw things at you, whether it's emotionally, whether it's financially. So I moved in feeling confident, and I was single. Okay. I was very much single when I moved to Dallas. Had no intention of, finding a partner right away. I guess I wanted a date, but there was no intention that I'm going to find someone. But I'm dating, right? And essentially the first person that I go on a date with, I used, what app did I use? I used Hinge. I used Hinge to find my partner. So essentially, I'm over here dating, and the first person that I meet on Hinge ends up being Zany. So we meet up, and it's like the stars aligned. And I'm going to save my emotions and feelings for another episode as well. But I never felt so divinely connected to someone. And it was just perfect timing. We were discovering different parts of our journeys of our lives together. And from April to, today, we're still together. And she was the light that I needed in order to continue my life, because I had everything but love. I had everything in the world. I knew that I had the education. I knew I had my business to financially sustain myself. But I didn't have love. I didn't have love coming from my parents, because they were kind of pissed off that I had left anyways. And I didn't have a lot of friends here. I had one friend, with my goddaughter. And I didn't have love coming from any other sources. I had friends, but I left them because, like I said, I was choosing myself. I have a habit of choosing myself, because at the end of the day, like, I can't serve everybody. And especially in nuestra cultura, they teach us that we, tenemos que honrar nuestros padres. And that's not saying that I don't love them and respect them, but God, I don't want to follow their ideas. I don't want to follow their rules. I don't want to follow what the path that they had for me. I wanted to create my own. So here I am creating my own. I'm finding a partner. Zany and I are not only discovering who we are together, but it's also discovering, like, can I financially sustain a relationship? Right. I hadn't been dating really fully, like, committed like this for a while. So it was a big transition into my life to find Zany and to then pay for two people. Like, dates are expensive, y'all. Like, it's not what I thought it was, because I made enough to sustain myself. I was very good at tracking my numbers of how much I would make for myself. But now I didn't expect to have another, mouth to feed, I guess you could say. And there's no shame in this, because I wanted to confidently feel like I could do this. But it was a big transition. It was a big transition feeling like the sole provider. And so these are things that you can't control when it happens, but you're trying to figure out, okay, how's the best solution? When do we talk about money? When do we, figure out, does she move in? What costs is she going to cover? And things like that. And so I felt like 2022, I was discovering who I am with a partner, who I am outside of the house that I grew up in, outside of the state that I grew up in, and who am I in this new environment, this new city, So, and 2022 was, liberating in a sense, because I was figuring out who is Leah in all these different spaces, and financially, even, because I've never been in that position of being a sole provider in a household or covering most of the expenses, because Zany, during the process of our relationship and understanding each other, she also got diagnosed with ADHD. And so if you don't know what ADHD is, it's attentive hyper, what is it called, babe? Attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Zany confirmed that's what it's called, ADHD. So essentially, she got diagnosed with that. And then because I was getting frustrated, I'm like, why can't you write this essay for homework, right? I'm like, come on, get on your computer and write it. And she just could not. And we always felt like she had bad luck happening to her because there was always things that she would forget or things that were, halfway done. And I'm like, something's off here and I don't know what it is. And it wasn't until my lovely friend, La Gorda Feminista on social media, medium, she literally was like, Leah, I think she has ADHD. You should get her tested. And so that was a whole journey and a whole episode in itself of how we discovered that and how the process of Zany's emotions and how that impacted me and my emotions and me feeling, responsible, but also I'm like, she's a grown adult. And so at the end of the day, 2022 was a lot of just work, a lot of discovering all these new things. And even I would start going back to therapy because it can be very scary when you live in a world where you might not be fully accepted for who you are. And especially having these intersectionalities of being Latina and queer is, you never know in what space you'll be accepted in. I decided that, hey, Leah, like this is the time that you're going to work on therapy and you're going to go back to therapy and work on yourself and work on the demons that you have, which were, my parents, which were just trauma from my upbringing and even corporate, because I was also trying to figure out, how am I an entrepreneur? How can I set these boundaries in my relationship? How can I set these boundaries in my life so I can live my life and still run a business? Because the Riqueza Collective has never shut down. Like I've been still running this at the same time of having this whole relationship, going through my own depression and anxiety, because I feel like I go through seasons of it. Some days I'm really good. Some days I'm just really, struggling and chugging along and sometimes thinking that I should get back on my meds, but I'm trying to do things holistically in a way that, okay, am I exercising? Am I eating right? Am I taking care of my gut? Am I doing all these things in order to take care of my mindset too? So when we enter these Nuevas Vibras for 2023, one thing that I decided to leave behind was, me living in the image of someone else, living to the standards of what the boxes say. Because even when I go back to when I was like 15, 16 years old, I was talking to a counselor and I was like, girl, I do not want to be statistic. I don't want to fit in a box. I don't want to be none of that. I want to create my own life. I want to create my own rules. Always been this way. And so I needed to let go of every expectation that I had of myself, because that was what was holding me back emotionally. And I know this podcast is about money, but again, it's also about my journey. And that's what I really want to integrate, because I have a lot of things going on that I feel like a lot of first gen queer babies, or, just queer individuals that might understand me in a different level that they've never heard before, either on a podcast or even on social media. So 2022, I just really wanted to leave behind all these expectations. I'm like, Leah, you are not what your parents want. You are not what, society defines. You are a beauty of so many intersectionalities, of being queer, of being Latina, of being the first daughter, of being a woman, growing up in a very more conservative, culture than what, most people live in. And so I was like, you know what? Just be yourself. Stop putting yourself into boxes and dividing yourself into different spaces. Just show up as who you are. And that's what I want to do today. And that's what I'm doing, I guess, is this year I'm focusing on showing up and sharing everything, from my fears of money, from, more about my personal things that I'm scared of or happy about, talking more about my journey of wealth and how I've gotten here and what I'm struggling with these days. Because like I said, this journey is just highs and lows. And even as I coach my clients, as I, create content, I'm like, sometimes I feel like a hypocrite because sometimes life hits me too. You know what I mean? I'm like, yes, I want to show up and say, this is how you do this, this, and this. And yes, that's the flow of, whatever finance theory I'm talking about. But I might not be able to apply it because of the way life is hitting me, And so again, I'm only human, and that's what I want to do, is humanize this podcast and talk about the realness of wealth and how I'm redefining it for myself. And I think that's why I love this podcast is it's all about redefining what wealth is, what this journey is all about. And what I've discovered in the last few years is that wealth is unique and is a lifestyle that we all want to attain for financial freedom. Wealth is financial independence for me. Wealth is being able to wake up and confidently say that my bills are paid. Wealth is feeling loved. And that's what I discovered in 2022 is that love is a big part of this equation and is what kept me going for the year. You know, during the holidays, it was really hard. It was really hard for me to feel accepted. I didn't even want to show up on social media, if I'm quite honest, because I just felt so alone in familia. You know, cada quien tenía sus, se juntaba con su familia. And I was just here with Amy. And I just had to accept that was my new family, and I wanted to build that, but it was also hard letting go of the ideas and structures that you're told that are supposed to be right. And so it was a lot of emotions for last year. And that's why I couldn't record a lot of things because I was going through so much. I didn't even know how I could share it. So here I am showing up for myself, showing up for y'all to share the story, to tell more about my journey, to interview more guests that bring me joy, that also challenge my perspective and teach me to teach you as well, like new things about money and the journey of attaining wealth and different aspects of how it grows, from local activists that I've met and local businesses to virtual businesses that have conquered their industry, or international businesses. And, I want to really expand this. Y pues que, this is Nuestra Riqueza. And I just want to thank you all for tuning in today and listening to las nuevas vibras de este podcast, because aquí estamos con energía, con, felicidad, que pues hemos llegado este año de prosperidad y, things might not be easy all the time, and it's okay to stay inconsistent sometimes when life happens, but we're here, we're showing up and we're showing out. And I look forward to sharing more episodes with y'all. So stay tuned. If you have any questions, make sure to, send us some financial questions here at Mi Riqueza Podcast at gmail.com or down below. If you like this podcast, if you're excited for this podcast, make sure to share it with your friends and family, your other first gen individuals, my queer babies, my queer individuals, my Latinas, my first gen daughters, whoever you are, wherever you are, please give it a follow, download this podcast, share it with your amigas, follow us on Instagram, because we're coming back, baby. We're coming back and we're coming better.